I want to go back to where you were talking about how you also contributed, I think, as part of your internship
Hmm.
at that company where then you ended up working for after graduation.
Yeah.
Um, do you remember how that contribution experience was? Like, was it easy? Was it hard? How were the people, the contributors of that project? How did they react to what you were trying to contribute?
I remember having a good reaction to it. I think if I didn't have a good reaction or a good response that first time, I think I probably wouldn't have done anything else. I mean, that by the way says volumes about why we need to have a good first experience for first time contributors. I recall that I looked up in the documentation, the README file somewhere, and probably the contrib file, who was the maintainer. And so I emailed that person and said, so here's my situation. I was compiling it on this other system and it didn't compile. And so on my system, I added this. And so I was able to say, here's the patch that makes it work on my system. So, the key there, by the way, was, being polite. I'm not saying, oh, yours is broken. It was just, I couldn't get it to work in this other system. And I made this change to make it work. And here's my patch. And my recollection is that the person basically said, oh, cool, thanks. And then it would have shown up in the next version. And so that was, I recall it was a very good process. My next major one, though, was there was an open source compiler, C compiler, and I wanted to have a compiler for our HP system. I made a fix to get it to work and sent back the patch kind of the same basic way, right? So I tried to compile the system and I couldn't get it to work. And so I made this change. And so here's the change that I made. And that person was I would say a little less gracious about responding to it. I mean, they took the change, and that change did make it in the next version. But that person was maybe a little less hospitable to the new contributor. I think in retrospect, that person was probably trying to kind of help me to learn how to make a contribution in something. It was, in terms of providing a patch rather than here's the lines that I changed. But that was less cool. I think if that had been my first introduction to the open source world, I might not have been as willing to go back and make another one. And so it's two different ways to have your first introduction. And I think it's sort of, as I said, it kind of, I think, says a lot about, why you need to be welcoming to new users and provide, easy on-ramps for people to get started.
I think almost everyone that we talked to, they said that they either had a good experience, or if they didn't, then they didn't go back for a while.
Mhm.
And then afterwards, they got a better experience, and then it changed their relationship to open source and the communities. So,